Welcome to long-form content of Tech Bytes and News. This is a compilation on latest news and articles featured on Hacker News. You can find the original links of articles in the description. Please like and subscribe to support future content. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating security vulnerability, a method to leak the email address of any YouTube user, a discovery that netted a hefty bug bounty. The core issue revolves around a chain of vulnerabilities, starting with the seemingly innocuous act of blocking someone on YouTube. Intriguing, right?
Absolutely. So how does blocking someone on YouTube lead to exposing their email? That sounds like a pretty significant leap.
It's a multi-step process, a clever chain of exploits. First, blocking a user on YouTube reveals their obfuscated Gaia ID, a unique Google account identifier. This ID, surprisingly, is exposed through the platform's blocking functionality. I mean, who would expect that?
That's already a significant vulnerability. But how do you get from a Gaia ID to an email address?
That's where the second part comes in. The researcher discovered that a seemingly unrelated Google service, Pixel Recorder, has a flaw. This service, designed for recording screen activity on Pixel phones, allows sharing recordings with users, and, critically, it uses the Gaia ID to identify the recipient. And, it reveals the email address associated with that Gaia ID during the sharing process. Crazy, right?
So you're saying they found a way to use the Gaia ID leaked from YouTube to get the email from Pixel Recorder? That's a brilliant, if somewhat terrifying, connection.
Exactly. But there's a twist. Sharing a recording via Pixel Recorder sends a notification email to the target. This could alert the victim to the breach. However, the researcher cleverly bypassed this by creating a recording with an extremely long title, over 2.5 million characters, effectively preventing the notification email from being sent. Clever, huh?
That's incredibly resourceful. So the whole attack chain involves leaking the Gaia ID from YouTube, using Pixel Recorder to get the email, and then using a ridiculously long title to avoid detection. It's like a three-part puzzle, each piece seemingly harmless on its own, but deadly when combined.
Precisely. The researcher reported this to Google, and after some back and forth, they received a substantial bug bounty, a total of $10,633. The initial award was lower, but after further investigation and clarification, Google increased the payout, recognizing the severity of the combined vulnerabilities. A well-deserved reward.
It highlights the importance of comprehensive security assessments, not just looking at individual services in isolation, but also considering how they interact. This vulnerability chain is a perfect example of how seemingly minor flaws can be combined for devastating effect. It's a scary thought.
Absolutely. This case underscores the need for robust security practices across all Google services and the importance of responsible disclosure of vulnerabilities. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating article about smuggling arbitrary data through emojis. It's incredibly clever, and a bit scary.
Emojis? Seriously? I mean, I get data hiding, but emojis? That sounds unlikely.
That's what I thought initially. But the core idea is brilliant. It leverages Unicode's variation selectors. These are code points that don't display themselves, but modify the appearance of the preceding character. Think of them as invisible modifiers.
Okay, I'm following. So you're saying you can attach these invisible modifiers to any character, including an emoji?
Exactly. And because there are 256 of these variation selectors, each one can represent a byte of data. So you can chain them together after a base character, an emoji, a letter, whatever, to encode a whole string of data.
Whoa! So you could hide, like, a whole message in a single emoji?
Potentially a very long message. The article shows how to do it in Rust, converting bytes into variation selectors and concatenating them. The result? It looks like a normal emoji, but contains hidden data.
That's mind-blowing. But how do you decode it?
The decoding process is equally elegant. It's essentially the reverse of the encoding. The code iterates through the characters, identifies the variation selectors, converts them back to bytes, and reconstructs the original data. It's all explained in the article with clear code examples.
So what are the potential downsides or nefarious applications?
Well, the author rightly points out that this is an abuse of Unicode. One obvious concern is bypassing content filters. Since the hidden data is invisible after rendering, it could slip past human moderators.
I see. Like sneaking malware instructions or something? That's scary.
Precisely. Another application, though less malicious, is watermarking text. You could embed hidden data in every character, allowing you to trace the origin of leaked documents. It's a double-edged sword, you know?
It really is. This whole thing highlights the complexities and potential vulnerabilities within seemingly simple things like emojis. It's a fascinating look into the underbelly of Unicode.
Absolutely. It's a testament to how much hidden complexity can exist within seemingly simple systems. And it's a reminder that even emojis aren't as innocent as they appear. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of emoji data smuggling. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into PA Assistant, an open-source PostgreSQL performance optimization tool. It's pretty exciting stuff, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I'm particularly interested in how it handles schema optimization. That's a huge pain point for many developers.
Yeah, I know. PG Assistant tackles that head-on. It not only identifies schema issues, but also helps you fix them. Think of it as a smart, automated database doctor that analyzes your database behavior, giving you detailed insights into performance bottlenecks. And, it's all presented in a user-friendly interface. No complex command line tools needed.
That's a huge plus. Many similar tools are notoriously difficult to use. But what about the query management aspect? How does that work?
Oh, that's a killer feature. It lets you manage a library of custom SQL queries using a simple JSON file. You define your queries, categorize them, and even add documentation links. It's super organized and makes it easy to reuse your queries across projects.
I see. So it's not just about fixing problems, it's about proactively managing your queries too. That's smart.
Exactly. And it gets even better. It integrates with LLMs like OpenAI and even local LLMs like Ollama. You can use these to get help understanding query plans and optimizing your SQL. It even helps you formulate prompts for other LLM engines if you're not using OpenAI or Ollama.
Wow, that's impressive. So it's essentially leveraging AI to boost database performance? That's a pretty advanced approach.
It is. And it doesn't stop there. It can generate DDL for your top queries using PG_dump, and it even integrates with PGTune for system parameter optimization. It can even help you create a Docker Compose file based on PGTune recommendations. It's a complete package.
That's a lot. I'm curious though, how robust is the LLM integration? Are there any limitations?
That's a good question. While the LLM integration is powerful, its effectiveness depends on the quality of your prompts and the capabilities of the chosen LLM. It's not a magic bullet, but it significantly aids in the optimization process. The documentation provides guidance on crafting effective prompts.
Makes sense. So it's a powerful tool, but it requires some user expertise to get the most out of it, especially with the LLM features.
Precisely. It's not a point-and-click solution, but for developers comfortable with SQL and the basics of database optimization, it's a game changer. It's open source too, so you can contribute and customize it to your needs. It's got an MIT license, by the way.
Definitely worth checking out. Thanks for the detailed overview.
My pleasure. And remember, listeners, you can find P Assistant on GitHub. Check out the link in the show notes. That's all for today's Tech Bytes and News. Have a great day, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating security vulnerability uncovered in a cheap smartwatch, specifically the IDO and its white-labeled variants. It's a wild ride, folks.
Yeah, I saw this one. The lack of authentication is shocking, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about devices collecting potentially sensitive health data, right?
Exactly. The author started with a simple question: how to get data off this watch? Turns out, there's no easy export feature in the app. The only option is a low-resolution image with basic stats. A real head-scratcher.
And the Android file system restrictions made direct access impossible without rooting, adding another layer of complexity. So the author bought a cheap IDO-based watch off Amazon for about $39 AUD to investigate. Smart move, right?
Absolutely. It's amazing what you can get for that price these days. He even paired it with a different app, Rise, and it worked flawlessly. Talk about compatibility.
But the real story begins with the authentication, or rather, the complete lack thereof. The author discovered that after pairing via a QR code, which likely just contained the MAC address, there was no further authentication required. Anyone could connect and access everything.
That's terrifying. No pairing code, no security whatsoever. He could access activity data, sleep data, heart rate, even menstrual data, all without any form of protection. It's a massive privacy and security risk.
And the scale of the problem is huge. The Very Fit app used by these watches has over 5 million downloads. That's a lot of potentially compromised data. The author even mentions other brands using the same app and protocol.
Yeah, it's a bit scary. He even built a website to download the data, highlighting just how easy it is to exploit this vulnerability. He's also exploring other potential attack vectors, like hijacking the app to pretend to be a watch. The possibilities are endless, and frankly, unsettling.
The author's decision to publicly disclose this, rather than going through the lengthy process of contacting each vendor, is understandable, given the scale of the problem and the likelihood of inaction. It's a fuck it approach, but a necessary one, I think.
I see your point. It's a difficult situation. While responsible disclosure is ideal, the sheer number of affected devices and the potential for widespread harm make immediate public awareness crucial. This is a wake-up call for manufacturers and consumers alike.
Absolutely. It underscores the importance of robust security measures, even in seemingly low-cost devices. And for consumers, it's a reminder to be cautious about the data we share and the devices we use. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you found this discussion informative and, dare I say, slightly terrifying.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see you next time on Tech Bytes and News. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating project. Data scraping League of Legends replays, the hard way. For fun. It's a wild ride.
Sounds intense. What's the core challenge here? Why is scraping low-L data so difficult?
The main issue is data granularity. Riot's public APIs only give you aggregate stats, total kills, gold, etc. But what about the micro-interactions, the precise moments of ability use, player positions, damage calculations? That's the juicy stuff missing.
So this project aims to get that missing detail? What's the approach?
Exactly. This project reverse engineers the game's replay files, the ROFL files. Think of it as cracking the game's secret code to unlock its hidden data. They're encrypted, compressed, and the format is undocumented.
Wow, that's hardcore. So how does the process work, step by step?
First, you grab the encrypted replay. Then, you decrypt and decompress it. The data is in packets, each with a timestamp and type, any language. An emulator is used to process these packets, converting them into structured JSON. It's like translating an alien language.
An emulator? Why not just write a decryptor?
Good question. The decryption methods change frequently with game updates. The emulator makes debugging those changes much easier. Plus, it handles the decrypt access release cycle to thwart memory scanners, a clever security measure.
Clever. So what kind of data does this process extract?
Oh, tons. Precise player positions, ability usage timestamps, damage amounts, even when champions are hidden in the fog of war. The example JSON shows millisecond-level detail on events like spellcasts, attacks, and state changes. It's incredibly granular.
That's amazing. But how does the emulator actually work with the encrypted packets? What's the decryption process like?
The emulator uses a combination of techniques. It involves a lookup table, bitwise operations, and some clever arithmetic. It's not a simple XOR. It's a multi-step process. Instead of fully reverse engineering the decryption, the author uses a trampoline hook to intercept values directly from registers. It's a bit like intercepting a secret message before it reaches its destination.
A trampoline hook? That sounds like advanced reverse engineering. What are the performance implications of this approach?
Initially, using the Unicorn emulator was painfully slow, but the author rewrote it in Rust, creating an exception emulator that runs natively. Processing a 15-minute replay now takes only about 3 seconds. That's a massive improvement.
3 seconds? That's incredible. What are some of the other interesting aspects of this project?
Well, the author also identifies some potential optimizations Riot could make to their replay format. Things like removing redundant packets, using variable length integers for compression, and merging similar packet types. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit there for improved efficiency.
Fascinating. So what's the overall takeaway here?
This project demonstrates the power of reverse engineering and the potential for creating high-fidelity datasets from seemingly inaccessible sources. It's a testament to ingenuity and a great example of how detailed data can unlock new possibilities in game analysis and AI development. It's a truly impressive feat of technical skill.
Absolutely. Thanks for breaking this down for us. It's been a really insightful discussion.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. We'll catch you next time with more exciting tech news. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into Bess Stillman's poignant essay, The Year I Didn't Survive. A raw and deeply personal account of loss and new beginnings. It's a powerful piece, folks. Get ready.
Absolutely. The title itself is gripping. It immediately sets a tone of profound change and loss. I'm particularly interested in how she connects the neurological effects of grief and motherhood. It's not just emotional, it's a physical transformation, right?
Precisely. She describes how the death of her husband and the birth of her daughter caused significant structural changes in her brain, impacting memory, emotion, and even her sense of self. The hippocampus, crucial for memory and emotion, is directly affected, leading to forgetfulness and anxiety. It's a fascinating intersection of neuroscience and lived experience.
And it's not just the hippocampus. She mentions the default mode network, responsible for self-perception, expanding its connections, blurring the lines between her sense of self, her husband, and her newborn daughter. It's like her identity is wiring itself.
Exactly. She literally says she's not just herself, she's her husband, she's her daughter. This isn't just metaphorical. She discusses the scientific basis. Fetal cells remaining in the mother's body for decades, often found in areas of pain. It's a biological merging, a physical manifestation of her intertwined identities.
That's incredibly powerful and, a bit unsettling, you know? The physical changes are equally striking. The essay describes her physical transformation during pregnancy, the intense physical strain, and then the subsequent emptiness and softness after childbirth. It's a stark contrast.
Absolutely. She uses vivid imagery, a shockingly hard swell of muscle, skin so tight I thought I might split. Then the postpartum, softness, a slack, to my entire body. It's a visceral description of the physical toll of such profound experiences. And she challenges the cultural obsession with snapping back, highlighting the fragility of the body.
I see. Interesting. And the emotional impact is equally profound. The constant, I want, the yearning for what was, for miracles that didn't happen, is heartbreaking. But there's also a quiet strength in her acceptance of the new reality.
Yes, there's a beautiful resilience there. Despite the overwhelming grief and the profound changes, she finds moments of joy in her daughter's smile. She acknowledges the darkness, but also holds onto the hope of a future she's still building, even if it's a future she never imagined. The final text to her husband's phone, "How is this our life?" is both devastating and ultimately a testament to her enduring spirit.
It's a truly remarkable piece. The way she weaves together personal narrative, scientific explanation, and philosophical reflection is masterful. It's a story about loss, but it's also a story about transformation, adaptation, and the enduring power of love. It's a must-read for anyone interested in the human experience.
I couldn't agree more. It's a deeply moving and insightful exploration of grief, motherhood, and the ever-evolving nature of self. Thank you for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you found this discussion as compelling as we did. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of punch card knitting, a surprisingly relevant piece of computing history. It's a story of digital technology in a very analog form. Intriguing, right?
Absolutely. I've heard whispers of punch cards in computing history, but knitting? That's a new one. What's the connection?
Well, punch cards, traditionally associated with early computers, are still used in knitting machines. Think of them as the original binary code. Holes represent yes, no holes represent no. This simple system dictates the intricate patterns created by the machine. It's a beautiful example of how a seemingly outdated technology remains surprisingly relevant.
So these aren't just historical artifacts? They're actively used?
Exactly. The article highlights how these machines, while largely replaced in commercial settings, are still used by hobbyists and even remain in production, albeit on a smaller scale. It's a testament to their enduring appeal.
That's amazing! But the article also mentions challenges in preserving these punch card patterns, right? It's a bit ironic, digitizing something already digital.
You're spot on. The challenge lies in translating the physical punch cards into a digital format that's easily usable and reproducible. Simply scanning an image isn't enough. The quality needs to be exceptional to accurately capture the whole patterns. Low-quality scans lead to errors, resulting in jammed machines and frustrated knitters.
So what are some of the solutions being explored?
Several approaches are being investigated. One method involves painstakingly recreating the punch cards by hand, using a physical hole punch and a ruler. Tedious, but true to the original methods. Others are experimenting with CNC machines, which can precisely cut paper based on digital designs. This is more efficient, but requires high-quality scans to work effectively.
And what about the data itself? How are they storing the information?
That's where things get interesting. A common approach uses plain text files encoded in ASCII, representing the yes and no patterns. This is more compact than images and easier to share and modify. It's a clever workaround, but it does lose some of the original context.
I see. So there's a trade-off between preserving the original physical format and creating a more easily usable digital version. It seems like a balance between historical accuracy and practical application.
Precisely. The article emphasizes the importance of high-quality scans for posterity, regardless of the chosen method. The better the scan, the easier it will be to work with the data in the future, even with advancements in technology. It's a long-term investment in preservation.
And what about the broader implications? The article mentions feminist computing history.
Yes. Punch card knitting machines were often used by women, both in industrial settings and at home. This makes them a significant part of the often overlooked history of women in computing. It's a fascinating intersection of technology, gender, and craft.
It really is. The article also highlights the open-source nature of this community, which is quite refreshing in today's world of proprietary software.
Absolutely. The accessibility and ease of modification are key aspects. You can own your code, your machine, and your creations without restrictions. It's a powerful statement about control and creativity.
It's a compelling story, highlighting the enduring relevance of seemingly outdated technologies and the importance of preserving both the physical and digital aspects of our cultural heritage.
Indeed, and it shows how even seemingly simple technologies can have profound implications for computing history, gender studies, and the future of craft. A truly fascinating intersection of disciplines. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of punch card knitting. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a truly unique article. I tasted Honda's spicy rodent repelling tape. It's wild.
Wild is an understatement. I saw the title and immediately knew this was going to be a ride. So what's the gist? Did someone actually eat car parts?
Essentially, yes. The author, after some car trouble involving rodent damage to their wiring, discovered Honda sells this super expensive tape coated in capsaicin to deter rodents. They then proceeded to taste it.
What was the reasoning behind this culinary adventure?
Well, the author was curious, I guess. They found the tape online, a reader had just sent them money, and they saw it as a sign. A sign to eat spicy mouse tape.
I see. And what did Honda say about this unusual product testing?
They actually responded. The author contacted Honda's PR, and Chris Martin, surprisingly, got back to them. He didn't exactly endorse the taste test, but he did provide the safety data sheet.
Amazing! So what were the findings of this highly unscientific experiment?
The tape, apparently, tasted like a Band-Aid and Rockstar energy drink hybrid with a subtle capsaicin kick. The author described it as a blushing ambient warmth, almost numbing. They even suggested it could have culinary applications.
A culinary application for rodent repellent tape? I'm intrigued, but also slightly concerned. Did they actually find any culinary uses?
They suggested a Bloody Mary rim. A Bloody Mary rim. But they quickly added a disclaimer. This is not a recommendation. Definitely not a recommendation.
I'm guessing the effectiveness of the tape as a rodent repellent is questionable?
Let's just say the author found a shrew in their slipper after the experiment. So, maybe not the most effective rodent deterrent. But a great story, right?
Absolutely. A truly memorable and unusual article. Thanks for sharing this spicy story with us.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, don't lick your car parts. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of Unix, exploring some key commands, concepts, and historical figures. Let's start with the su command. It's, incredibly powerful, right? Switching users. That's a big deal!
Absolutely. Su, short for substitute user, allows you to become another user, often the root user for administrative tasks. It's a fundamental command for system administration, isn't it? But, what about security implications? Shouldn't we be careful with that kind of power?
You're right to highlight the security aspect. Using su to become root requires extreme caution. It grants complete control, so any mistake could have serious consequences. That's why proper authentication and authorization are crucial. It's not something to take lightly.
Okay, let's move on. What about man? I've always found that command invaluable.
Oh, man is a lifesaver. Short for manual, it provides access to comprehensive documentation for virtually everything in Unix. It's your go-to resource for understanding commands, system calls, even configuration files. It's like having a built-in encyclopedia at your fingertips.
Exactly. It's so detailed, and it's always there. It's amazing how much information is packed into those man pages. Speaking of information flow, let's talk about pipes. How do they fit into this Unix ecosystem?
Pipes, denoted by the vertical bar, are incredibly elegant. They let you chain commands together, taking the output of one and feeding it as input to the next. It's a powerful way to build complex workflows from simple tools. Think of it like an assembly line for data processing.
That's a great analogy. It really highlights the power and efficiency of pipes. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about something less glamorous. Memory leaks. Fullness. What are they, and why are they a problem?
Memory leaks are a common programming bug, where a program fails to release memory it no longer needs. Over time, this can lead to system instability, slowdowns, and even crashes. It's a crucial issue for developers to address.
Definitely. It's a subtle but potentially devastating problem. Okay, let's switch to a more historical perspective. You mentioned some legendary figures in Unix history. Who are they?
Ah, yes, the legends. We have Dennis Ritchie, DMR, Ken Thompson, KT, and Brian Kernighan, BWK. These guys were instrumental in the creation and development of Unix, shaping the landscape of computing as we know it. Ritchie and Thompson, especially, are titans.
They're practically mythical figures in the computing world. And their work is still relevant today. Their contributions are foundational. Speaking of foundational, let's talk about C. What's its connection to Unix?
C is inextricably linked to Unix. Ritchie used C to rewrite Unix from assembly language, making it far more portable. This portability was a key factor in Unix's success. C's influence on Unix, and on programming in general, is immeasurable.
It's truly remarkable how these elements, the commands, the concepts, the people, and the language, all intertwine to create this powerful and enduring operating system. It's a testament to elegant design and enduring influence.
Absolutely. And that's a wrap for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for joining us on this exploration of the Unix world. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the heart of Unix. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a fascinating improvement in Nix, pre-resolved store paths. It's a game changer, especially for resource-constrained environments.
I'm all ears. So what's the core problem this solves? I understand Nix's reproducibility, but what's the bottleneck?
Right. Nix's power comes from its reproducible builds, but before it builds anything, it needs to evaluate the store path, where the built artifact will live. This evaluation tax is significant, especially on low-powered devices. Even if you're pulling from a cache, the path evaluation still happens.
So it's the overhead of figuring out where to get the cached item, not just getting it? That makes sense. Of the show. It's like searching your hard drive for a file before you actually open it, even if you know it's there.
Exactly. And that's where FlakeHub's resolved store paths come in. They let you get the store path without the evaluation. Think of it as having a map to the file's location already, bypassing the search entirely.
So, you get the path directly from FlakeHub's database? That's clever. How does that work in practice?
FlakeHub offers two key commands via their fhcli, fhresolve, and fhapply. Fhresolve gets you the store path for a given flake reference, and fhapply uses that path to directly apply configurations for NixOS, Home Manager, or even Nix Darwin.
Interesting. So fhresolve is like a direct lookup, while fhapply is the action of using that predetermined path to deploy a configuration?
Precisely. And the beauty is, it's significantly faster, especially on resource-constrained systems. No more lengthy evaluations, just instant access to the path and subsequent deployment.
But doesn't this require a FlakeHub account? Is it free?
It does require a paid FlakeHub plan. The Resolved Store Paths feature, along with private flakes and the cache itself, are part of their paid offering, but the speed and efficiency gains, especially in enterprise deployments or on embedded systems, could easily justify the cost.
I see. So it's a trade-off between cost and performance. What about security? How does FlakeHub handle access control?
Excellent question. FlakeHub supports both public and private flakes. Public flakes are accessible to anyone with the FHCLI, while private flakes are restricted to authorized users. This ensures that only those with permission can access the resolved store paths and apply configurations.
That's reassuring. So, this whole system relies on publishing the store paths during the flake publishing process using the FlakeHub push action, correct? It's not something you do manually?
Exactly. You configure FlakeHub-push to include output paths, and it handles the evaluation and storage in FlakeHub's database. It's all automated as part of your CI/CD pipeline.
This sounds like a significant advancement for Nix deployments, especially in scenarios where speed and resource efficiency are paramount. It simplifies deployments and reduces the overhead associated with path resolution. A very elegant solution.
Absolutely. It opens up new horizons for Nix, making it even more powerful and accessible across a wider range of environments. From embedded systems to cloud deployments, this optimization is a game changer. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of pre-resolved Nix store paths. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating article on intentional joy, a concatenative approach to internal program structure. It's a really cool blend of philosophy, programming language theory, and some seriously clever algorithm design. Get ready.
Intentional joy? Sounds intriguing. So what's the core idea here? Is it about making programs happier? Just kidding.
Haha, no, not exactly. It's about bringing intentionality to concatenative programming languages like Joy. Think of it this way. Extensionally, two sorting algorithms might produce the same output, but intentionally, they're different because their internal workings are distinct. This article explores how to let a program examine the code of another program, not just its input/output behavior.
I see. So we're talking about introspection within the program itself? That's pretty meta. How does this work in Joy specifically?
Exactly. Joy is a concatenative language. meaning programs are built by concatenating commands. The article proposes adding new operators, like map and quota, to enable this introspection. Map applies a function to each element of a program, while quota wraps each command in a quotation, essentially exposing the program's structure.
Whoa! So map is like a higher order function but operating on the program's code itself? That's powerful. But how does quota fit in? It sounds more like a structural transformation.
You're spot on. Quota is all about revealing the structure. It's a more fundamental operation, and the article cleverly shows how you can build map using quota, and vice versa. This demonstrates a kind of equivalence between these two approaches to intentionality.
That's a really elegant demonstration of equivalence. But doesn't the intentional aspect complicate the idea of equivalence? Aren't two programs that behave identically but have different internal structures still different intentionally?
Absolutely. That's the crux of the matter. The author rightly points out that while map and a quota-based equivalent might behave the same, they are fundamentally different intentionally. It highlights the need for a more nuanced definition of equivalence in the context of intentional programming languages.
It's not just about the what but the how. This whole thing reminds me of the difference between denotational and operational semantics. We're looking at the operational details here, the actual steps of execution, not just the mathematical meaning.
Precisely. And the article even touches on the limitations of this approach. The simplicity of Joy, with its lack of variable binding, is a key factor. The author suggests that extending this to languages with variable binding, like Lambda Prolog or FreshML, would require further research.
Fascinating. So, it's not just a theoretical exercise. It opens up avenues for future research in more complex programming paradigms. It's a really well-written article, clearly explaining complex concepts in a digestible way.
Indeed. The author masterfully blends philosophy, programming language theory, and practical implementation details. The discussion of distinguishing dupe from a quotation is particularly clever, showing how even seemingly simple operations can have surprising depth in an intentional context. It's a must-read for anyone interested in programming language design or the theoretical foundations of computation.
I completely agree. It's a great example of how seemingly simple concepts can lead to deep insights and open up new research directions. Thanks for bringing this to our attention.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes in News. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes in News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a really cool GitHub project, Mikey, a native Windows audio meeting note-taker. It's amazing.
A native Windows app? No cloud dependency? That's a game changer for privacy-conscious users, right? What's the core functionality?
Exactly. It records audio, transcribes it using the Grok API, so you need an API key, and then generates meeting notes. All locally, no external servers involved. Think of it as a supercharged digital notepad for your meetings.
Interesting. So it's not just transcription, it actually summarizes the meeting? That's a significant step beyond simple transcription. What's the UI like?
Yeah, it uses PyQt, so it's got a nice, clean GUI. There's a recordings browser, a two-panel window showing timestamps on one side and the transcript on the other. Very intuitive. Plus, it even has a custom favicon, the little icon in the window, for a professional touch. Pretty slick, huh?
I see. But relying on a third-party API for transcription, even Grok, introduces a potential single point of failure, doesn't it? What happens if the Grok API goes down?
That's a valid concern. Absolutely. While the transcription relies on Grok, the recording functionality is completely independent. You can still record your meetings even if the API is unavailable. The transcription and note generation would just be delayed until the API is back online. The developer could potentially add support for other transcription APIs in the future to mitigate this risk.
Good point. So it's built with Python, right? How's the installation and deployment? Is it easy to get running?
It's pretty straightforward. You install the dependencies using pip, and then you just run the main script. But the best part is that it can be built into a standalone executable using PyInstaller. No need to have Python installed on the target machine.
That's impressive. So essentially, you get a self-contained application that you can distribute easily. What about the project structure? Is it well organized?
Yeah, the codebase seems well structured. It's got separate folders for the core logic, the GUI, and the recordings. The README is also very comprehensive, explaining everything from installation to building the executable. It even includes a directory structure diagram. Very helpful.
Excellent. It sounds like a really well thought out project. The fact that it's open source is a huge plus, allowing for community contributions and improvements. What are the future prospects for Mikey?
I think it has great potential. Imagine the possibilities with added features like speaker identification, improved note generation, or even integration with other calendar apps. The community could really take this project to the next level.
Definitely. It's a valuable tool for anyone who needs a reliable, privacy-focused meeting note-taker. Thanks for highlighting this project.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a fascinating story about a static web page that unexpectedly spawned a thriving community. It's a tale of serendipity, open source, and the growing interest in local-first software development. Get ready, it's a wild ride.
I'm all ears. A static web page starting a community? That sounds counterintuitive. What's the secret sauce?
The author, James Pierce, a former engineering director at Meta, found himself with a lot of downtime while sailing. He was working on TinyBase, an open-source project for storing structured data in a browser. He noticed a growing buzz around local-first software, applications prioritizing offline functionality and user data control.
So local first is the key here. What exactly does that mean in practical terms? Isn't the cloud the standard now?
Exactly. Local first flips the script. It's about putting the data on the user's device, not relying solely on the cloud. Think offline access, improved performance, and greater control over your own information. It's a refreshing change from the cloud-centric approach.
I see. So James created a website, localfirstweb.dev, as a simple directory of local first projects. A pretty basic static page, right?
Yep, just a list of links, essentially. But it tapped into a latent demand. The concept resonated, and the site quickly gained traction. Retweets, likes, and even pull requests started pouring in within hours. It was completely unexpected.
Wow, that's incredible. So a simple static page became a catalyst. But how did it evolve into a full-fledged community?
That's where Jonathan comes in. He's a Harvard Business School graduate who discovered TinyBase and James's work. He recognized the potential for a community around local-first development and, bam, created a Discord server.
And the rest, as they say, is history. A Discord server, meetups, a newsletter, the whole shebang. It's amazing how quickly it all took off.
Absolutely. It's a testament to the power of community and the growing interest in this alternative approach to software development. It's a really inspiring story, showing how a simple idea, executed well, can have a huge impact.
It's a great example of how a seemingly small action can have unexpectedly large consequences. It makes you wonder what other butterfly effects are waiting to happen on the web.
Precisely. And it highlights the importance of open-source projects and community building. The success of localfirstweb.dev wasn't just about the website itself, but about the people who embraced the idea and contributed to its growth. A truly inspiring story.
Definitely. It's a reminder that sometimes the simplest things can have the biggest impact. Thanks for sharing this fascinating story.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of local-first software and community building. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a seriously exciting job posting. Senior/staff software engineer at Extend, a company revolutionizing document processing with LLMs. Get ready.
Yeah, this sounds intense. They're boasting 15x revenue growth this year, hitting 7 figures in arranged by. That's insane growth.
Totally. And they're not just growing. They're working with major players like Chime, Brex, and Opendoor. That's a serious validation of their platform. They're tackling a huge market opportunity, too. The LLM boom has expanded the document processing market 1000x, and existing solutions are apparently lacking.
So they're aiming to be the disruptor, right? What are some of the technical challenges they're facing?
Absolutely. they're wrestling with some really meaty problems. How do you confidently deploy LLM-powered document processing into production? How do you handle completely unexpected data? Building a self-correcting system that improves over time is a huge challenge. And enabling non-technical users to improve models. That's a whole other level of complexity.
Right, the human-AI interface is key. It's not just about the tech, it's about making it usable for everyone. They mention needing to design new UX patterns that didn't exist before. That's a bold statement.
It is. And they're not just talking about the tech, they're highlighting the real-world impact. Getting document processing wrong can have serious consequences. Missed payments, delays in housing, the stakes are high.
That's a great point. It adds a layer of responsibility and urgency to the role. What about the role itself? What are they looking for?
They need someone with 5+ years of experience building complex systems, someone who's been in high-growth startups, and someone who can take ownership. Experience with AI/ML deployment in production is a must, and experience with developer tools is a plus. They're looking for engineer number 3, so it's a small, tight-knit team.
Sounds like a dream job for the right person. High equity, working with cutting-edge technology, and making a real difference. But the high-performance culture part, that could be a double-edged sword, right? It might be intense.
You're right. High-performance cultures can be demanding. But, given their growth and the caliber of companies they work with, it's probably a necessary part of the equation. They're aiming for the top.
Definitely. This job posting is a great example of how the LLM revolution is impacting even the most unexpected areas. It's not just about building models, it's about building the infrastructure to support them.
Exactly. And that's what makes this role so compelling. It's a chance to be at the forefront of a major technological shift. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of LLM-powered document processing. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into Dead Beef, a seriously impressive open-source music player. It's not your average media player, folks. This thing is packed. Let's get started.
I'm already intrigued. What makes Dead Beef stand out from the crowd? Is it just another music player, or is there something special about it?
Oh, there's so much special about it. First off, it's incredibly versatile. It plays practically everything. MP3, OGG Vorbis, FLAC, APE, you name it. Even those obscure chiptune formats like NSF and SID are supported. It's like a Swiss Army knife for audiophiles. Amazing, right?
Wow, that's a huge range of formats. But what about features beyond just playback? Does it handle metadata well?
Absolutely. It's a tag editor's dream. It reads and writes a massive number of tag formats, including Idaho 3v1, Idaho 3v2, all versions, APEV2, and more. It even has automatic character set detection for those older, non-Unicode tags. A real lifesaver for dealing with legacy music libraries. And the tag editor itself is top-notch, with support for custom fields. Seriously impressive.
That's impressive. So it's not just about playing files, it's about managing them effectively. What about organization? Does it handle playlists and cue sheets well?
Oh yeah. Playlist management is a breeze. You can use tabs or a playlist browser. And the advanced title formatting scripting lets you sort and group tracks in practically any way imaginable. It's even compatible with FooBar 2000 scripting, which is a huge plus for power users. And the cue sheet support is phenomenal. It automatically splits albums into tracks, handles embedded and external cue sheets, and even extracts chapter information from formats like M4B audiobooks. It's incredibly smart.
That's really clever. And what about the technical side? How efficient is it? Does it use system resources wisely?
It's surprisingly efficient. It uses each platform's native UI toolkit, GTK2, GTK3, Cocoa, etc., for optimal performance. On Unix systems, it uses ALSA and Pulse Audio for audio output. It's designed to be lightweight and responsive, even with large music libraries. It's a beautiful piece of engineering.
So it's efficient, versatile, and has great metadata handling. What about some of the more advanced features? Does it offer any DSP capabilities or network functionality?
Absolutely. It boasts an 18-band graphical equalizer and a highly customizable DSP pipeline with numerous plugins. And on the network side, it supports streaming radio for various formats and protocols like Shoutcast, Icecast, and MMS. It even has a built-in converter plugin for transcoding files to different formats, which is incredibly useful for transferring music to mobile devices. You can even pre-process files before conversion, applying equalizers or downsampling. It's a complete package.
I see, that's a lot of features. But one thing I'm curious about is album art. How does Dead Beef handle that?
You can enable album art display, and it can be loaded from image files or audio file tags. It can even automatically download images from various web services. It's not just about the music. It's about the whole experience. It's all there.
It sounds almost too good to be true. Is there anything it doesn't do? Any limitations or drawbacks?
Well, it's primarily focused on functionality, so the UI might not be as sleek or modern as some commercial players. But honestly, the level of customization available more than makes up for it. And it's open source, so the community is constantly improving it. It's a work of art.
That's a fair point. Overall, it sounds like a fantastic option for anyone who wants a powerful, highly customizable, and feature-rich music player. Thanks for the overview.
My pleasure. And remember, you can download Dead Beef from their website. Check it out. You won't be disappointed. Thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. Have a great day, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into Backblaze's 2024 hard drive statistics. Get ready for some serious data analysis.
I'm pumped. 300,000 drives. That's a lot of data to crunch. What are the key takeaways?
Absolutely. The overall annualized failure rate, AFR, for 2024 was 1.57%, down from 1.70% in 2023, a significant improvement.
That's excellent news for data reliability. But what drove that improvement? Was it just one factor or a combination?
It's a multifaceted story. The introduction of 14,000 plus new 20 terabytes plus, 22 terabytes, and 24 terabytes drives played a huge role. These newer drives had a remarkably low AFR of 0.77% in Q4 alone. 0 failures for some models.
Wow, 0 failures? That's impressive. But I'm curious, what about the older drives? Did they contribute to the overall picture?
Yes, the older drives are a factor. The 4 terabytes drives are almost completely phased out, but the 8 terabytes and 12 terabytes drives, being 5 to 8 years old, are showing increasing failure rates, as expected. It's the classic bathtub curve in action.
The bathtub curve? Could you elaborate on that for our listeners?
Sure. The bathtub curve illustrates how failure rates change over a product's lifespan. Initially, there are early failures, then a period of low failure rates, followed by a rise in failures as the product ages. We're seeing that with the older drives.
I see. So the newer drives are offsetting the increased failure rates of the older ones. What about the manufacturers? Were there any significant differences?
Definitely. Seagate showed a slight decrease in AFR, which is good. Toshiba and WDC maintained consistent, low failure rates. However, HGST had a bump up, mainly due to 2 specific 12 terabytes models. Without those, their AFR would be much lower.
Interesting. So it's not just about drive size, but also the specific model and manufacturer. This highlights the importance of detailed analysis, right?
Precisely. The report emphasizes the need to consider multiple factors. They even provide a detailed breakdown of the data by manufacturer, drive size, and model, allowing for granular analysis. It's a goldmine of information.
And what about the lifetime AFR? How does that look?
The lifetime AFR is 1.31%, down from 1.46% in 2023. This is largely due to the removal of the 4 terabyte Seagate drives, which had a high failure rate. But even without them, the overall trend is positive.
So overall, a very positive report. It seems Backblaze is doing a great job managing their massive storage infrastructure. And a big thanks to Andy Klein for his 10 years of drive stats reports.
Absolutely. A huge thank you to Andy. He's moving on to retirement, but the drive stats will continue with Stephanie Doyle and David Johnson. We'll be sure to keep you updated on future reports. Remember to check out the Backblaze blog for the full data set and detailed analysis. Thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into query compilation in databases, a topic that's both fascinating and incredibly relevant to performance. The core issue? Disk speeds are outpacing query interpreters, creating a bottleneck. Right?
Absolutely. It's a classic case of hardware advancements outpacing software optimization. So, how are databases currently addressing this? Vectorization seems to be a common approach, but it's not a universal solution, is it?
That's right. Vectorization works wonders for OLAP-style queries, those big summary operations on compressed data. Think Apache Arrow and libraries like Data Fusion and Velox. They're making great strides there. But OLTP queries, with their index lookups and hash joins on sparse data, are a different beast entirely. Vectorization just doesn't scale as effectively.
I see. So for OLTP, the solution is often compiling queries to native code? That's a significant shift from interpretation.
Precisely. Compiling allows hard-coding parameters, keeping values in CPU registers for optimal speed. Databases like SQL Server, SingleStore, Redshift, and Oracle have embraced this approach with varying degrees of success. It also simplifies integrating external functions and procedural languages directly into the compiled code. A huge win!
But compiling queries isn't without its challenges, is it? The article mentions the trade-off between compile time and runtime.
Yeah, that's a huge hurdle. A query might only run once, so spending ages compiling it is pointless unless the runtime gains are substantial. Getting that balance right is incredibly difficult. Remember that Postgres JIT compiler incident? Yikes! It crashed the UK coronavirus dashboard.
Oh wow, that's a pretty dramatic example of the risks involved. So how are browsers handling this similar problem with JavaScript and WebAssembly?
Browsers use a tiered approach: interpreter, baseline compiler, and optimizing compiler. This creates a smoother trade-off curve, avoiding those performance cliffs. Ben Titzer's work on WebAssembly backends illustrates this beautifully. It's a really elegant solution.
Interesting. So the article suggests that databases could benefit from adopting a similar tiered approach, essentially adding a baseline compiler layer. Is that feasible?
That's the core argument. The author points out that while optimizing compilers are commoditized, LLVM crane lift, baseline compilers aren't, but they might be relatively easy to build. They even suggest some interesting shortcuts, like copy and patch techniques, which reuse interpreter implementations and cleverly manipulate linker relocations. It's pretty clever stuff.
Copy and patch sounds unconventional. Are there any other alternatives mentioned? Compiling directly to WebAssembly, perhaps?
Yes, that's another idea floated. Leveraging existing WebAssembly backends could save a lot of effort, however, there are drawbacks. Limited SIMD instructions, lack of control over runtime behavior, and potential performance bottlenecks due to WebAssembly's encoding. The Mutable Database project is exploring this path, though.
So it seems like there's no single silver bullet. The article also mentions generating interpreters from compilers and even generating compilers from interpreters. That sounds mind-bending.
It is. The idea is to leverage existing code to reduce development effort. InkFuse, for example, generates a vectorized interpreter from a compiler, and Weevil takes a different approach, working with any interpreter that can be compiled to WebAssembly. It's a fascinating space with many promising avenues for exploration. It's a really exciting time for database optimization.
Indeed. It seems the quest for optimal query compilation is an ongoing journey, with many innovative approaches being explored. Thanks for breaking down this complex topic for us.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. We hope you found this discussion insightful. Have a great day, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into the storytelling genius of Steve Jobs, as revealed through the lens of Tony Fadell's experiences. Get ready, because this is a masterclass in product narrative. Let's go!
I'm pumped. Fadell worked on the iPod and iPhone, right? What key storytelling lessons did he glean from Jobs?
Exactly. Fidel emphasizes that every product needs a compelling narrative, a why, that resonates emotionally and rationally. It's not just about features. It's about solving a problem and connecting with the customer's needs. Think about the iPhone launch. Jobs didn't just list specs. He painted a picture of a better way to communicate.
Right, the three revolutionary products reveal brilliant. But Fidel also talks about something he calls the virus of doubt, right? What's that all about?
Yeah, it's a fascinating technique. It's about highlighting the existing frustrations customers face with current solutions. You make them unhappy with the status quo before presenting your solution as the cure. It's about creating that aha moment. Jobs was a master of this, subtly highlighting the shortcomings of existing smartphones before unveiling the iPhone.
So it's about creating a need before filling it. Clever. But wasn't it more than just words? Fidel mentions the product's design, features, even customer quotes as part of the overall story.
Absolutely. The story isn't confined to a press release or a keynote speech. It's woven into every aspect of the product, from its design to the marketing materials. It's a holistic experience. Think about the iPhone's sleek glass front. That's part of the story too. It's not just about functionality. It's about the feeling it evokes.
I see. And the importance of the why, the core problem the product solves, is emphasized throughout the article. It's the foundation upon which the entire narrative is built, right?
Precisely. The why is the bedrock. It's what keeps the team focused during development. Fidel points out that as you build the what, the features, you can lose sight of the why. You have to constantly remind yourself and your audience of the core problem you're solving.
That's a really important point, especially in long development cycles. It's easy to get bogged down in the details and forget the bigger picture. He also talks about the power of analogies, doesn't he? Like the 1,000 songs in your pocket for the iPod.
Yes, analogies are crucial for making complex concepts easily understandable. They create a bridge to common experiences, making the product relatable and memorable. The rush hour rewards example for the Nest thermostat is a perfect illustration. A simple analogy to explain a complex energy-saving feature. 3 words. Rush hour rewards. Brilliant.
So simple, yet so effective. It's all about making the story memorable and repeatable, right? So customers become advocates and spread the word.
Exactly. The best stories become self-perpetuating. They're not just told by the company, they're told by the customers. That's the ultimate goal. To create a story so compelling that it transcends the product itself and becomes part of the cultural conversation. It's about building mind share, not just market share.
It's a fascinating blend of art and science, isn't it? Understanding your audience's emotional and rational needs and crafting a narrative that speaks to both. It's not just about selling a product, it's about building a connection.
Absolutely. And that's the lasting legacy of Steve Jobs' storytelling, a lesson that continues to resonate with product developers today. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you found this deep dive into the art of product storytelling as insightful as we did. Until next time, keep innovating and keep telling great stories.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving into a groundbreaking advancement in polymer chemistry, a sustainable makeover for durable plastics. It's seriously exciting stuff.
Absolutely. I've been following this field closely. What's the core innovation here? Is it a new type of plastic altogether or a process improvement?
It's a process improvement, but a game changer nonetheless. They've developed a novel polymerization process using dihydrofuran, or DHF, a monomer that can be sourced from biological materials. This is huge!
Biosourced monomer? That's a key step towards sustainability. But thermosets, the type of plastic this focuses on, are notoriously difficult to recycle, right?
Exactly. Currently, almost none are recycled. They end up incinerated or in landfills. But this new method uses DHF in a 2-step polymerization. The first step creates a flexible, easily recyclable polymer chain. The second step, cleverly using the remaining DHF and light-initiated reactions, cross-links the polymer to create the durable thermoset.
So it's like a 2-part system? 1 part for flexibility, 1 for strength? And both are derived from the same base monomer? That's elegant.
Precisely. And the brilliance is in the control. By adjusting reaction time, catalyst amounts, and light intensity, They can fine-tune the material's properties. More light means more cross-linking and a harder material. Less light, more flexibility and recyclability. It's incredibly versatile.
I see. Interesting. But how does the recyclability work? Is it just melting and remolding, or something more sophisticated?
It's chemical recycling. The flexible part of the polymer retains a double bond crucial for the second polymerization. This allows them to completely break down the material back into its DHF monomer using heat, and then rebuild it. It's a truly circular process.
That's amazing. So it's not just about recycling, it's about creating a truly closed-loop system. This could revolutionize the plastics industry. But are there any limitations? What about scalability?
That's a valid point. Scalability is always a challenge with new materials. They're currently working on applications, including 3D printing, and exploring ways to expand the material's properties with additional monomers. But the potential is enormous. It's a significant step towards a more sustainable future.
I agree. This research is a fantastic example of how clever chemistry can address pressing environmental concerns. It's not just about making a new material, it's about rethinking the entire life cycle of plastics. This is a huge step forward.
Absolutely. And the fact that it's published in Nature speaks volumes about the significance of this work. It's a truly inspiring example of how scientific innovation can drive positive change. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We'll be back tomorrow with more exciting developments in the world of technology and science. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of automotive control design, specifically focusing on the subtle art of crafting physical controls for cars. It's a topic that blends engineering, ergonomics, and a dash of old-school craftsmanship.
Absolutely. I've always been intrigued by how the seemingly simple act of adjusting the car's climate control can be so frustrating in many modern vehicles. This article tackles that head-on, doesn't it?
Precisely. The author starts by revisiting a previous article where he lamented the over-reliance on touchscreens for climate control. He rightly points out that the core goal is simple: passenger comfort with minimal interaction. And that comfort hinges on 4 key environmental factors: temperature, radiation, airflow, and humidity. Clever, right?
Very clever. So, how did he propose to simplify things?
Initially, he designed a system centered around a single temperature dial. This dial would automatically adjust fan speed and seat heating to maintain the set temperature, a brilliant blend of automation and user control. But then he iterated, removing seat heating from the automated system because it's such a personal preference.
I see. A smart move. So how did he actually build this? Did he just slap a dial onto a touchscreen?
That's where things get interesting. He initially tried that, but found that approach problematic. Accurate touch registration around the dial proved difficult, and the space around the dial became unusable. So, he cleverly reversed the approach, bringing the display to the dial, not the other way around.
Ingenious. What technology did he use then?
He utilized the open-source Smart Knob project, a brushless DC motor that emulates an analog dial. The beauty of this is that the haptic feedback, the feel of the dial, is entirely software controlled. He could simulate detents, resistance, even vibration. It's a fantastically customizable solution.
That's amazing. So he essentially had a programmable physical control. What did he learn from experimenting with different haptic feedback profiles?
Oh, tons. He explored smooth linear resistance, which felt artificial. Regular detents felt the most natural, as expected. And then he tried dynamic resistance, increasing with volume level, unusual, but potentially useful in other contexts. His experiments led to a set of really insightful design guidelines.
I'm eager to hear those guidelines. What were some key takeaways?
Well, consistency is key. The haptic feedback should match user expectations. He also stressed the importance of allowing both precise and rapid adjustments. Think of volume control. Sometimes you need fine-tuning, sometimes you need to mute instantly. And then there's the crucial aspect of synchronizing physical and visual feedback. I should seamlessly reflect the dial's position.
Makes perfect sense. And what about the actual implementation of his climate control system? How did it all come together?
He implemented a system with temperature, fan speed, and seat heating controls all on one dial. He used progressive haptic resistance for temperature, communicating the magnitude of changes. Fan speed and seat heating had distinct haptic profiles, but he found that 3 functions on one dial was pushing the limits. The small display couldn't effectively communicate the relationships between the automated system's functions.
So what's his final recommendation?
2 functions, temperature and fan speed, on a single dial. Seat heating should be a separate, dedicated physical control. This keeps things simple, intuitive, and safe for the driver. He also highlighted some existing car manufacturers who have implemented similar solutions, like Jaguar and Skoda, though he notes that even these are becoming less common.
It's a shame that many car manufacturers are moving away from physical controls. It seems like a step backward in terms of usability and safety.
Absolutely. The author argues that while touchscreens are necessary for complex tasks, simple controls like climate settings should remain physical. It's not just about cost. It's about prioritizing ergonomics and safety. There's a tangible satisfaction in using well-designed physical controls that's simply lost with touchscreens. And that's something worth preserving.
I couldn't agree more. Thanks for summarizing this insightful article. It's a compelling case for the enduring value of well-designed physical controls in cars.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating double-blind, placebo-controlled study on the dose-dependent effects of LSD. Get ready, folks. It's going to be a wild ride.
LSD? Wow, I'm all ears. What were the researchers actually trying to find out? Was this just about the high or something more?
Exactly. It's not just about the high, although that was certainly measured. They wanted to understand the precise dose-response relationship of LSD across a range of doses, using pharmaceutically pure LSD, not the street stuff. They also looked at the role of the 5-HT2A receptor, a key player in LSD's effects, by using a receptor blocker.
So, they gave different doses of LSD to participants and measured the effects? What kind of doses are we talking about?
They used doses ranging from 25 micrograms all the way up to 200 micrograms. And the clever part? They used a crossover design, so each participant received all doses and a placebo, helping to control for individual differences. Pretty neat, huh?
Impressive. But how did they measure the effects? Did they just ask people how they felt?
Oh, they did much more than that. They used a whole battery of validated psychometric instruments. Think visual analog scales, VAS, for things like good drug effect and ego dissolution, the adjective mood rating scale, AMRS, and the 5DASC scale to assess altered states of consciousness. They even measured mystical experiences.
Mystical experiences? This is getting really interesting. What did they find?
Well, the results were pretty compelling. They found a dose-dependent increase in subjective effects, but with a ceiling effect, meaning the positive effects plateaued around 100 micrograms. Increasing the dose beyond that didn't make the good feeling stronger, but it did increase ego dissolution and anxiety.
So more isn't always better? That's a crucial finding, isn't it? What about the 5-HT2A receptor blocker, ketanserin?
Yeah, that's a really important point. The higher doses led to more negative effects, highlighting the importance of careful dose selection. Ketanserin, the 5-HT2A receptor antagonist, significantly reduced the effects of the highest LSD dose, bringing them down to the levels seen with the lowest dose. This strongly supports the idea that the 5-HT2A receptor is central to LSD's effects.
Fascinating. So what are the implications of this research? What does it mean for future studies and potential therapeutic uses of LSD?
Well, this study provides crucial dose-response data for LSD, which is essential for future research. It suggests that a dose of around 100 micrograms might be optimal for therapeutic purposes, balancing positive effects with minimal negative ones. Lower doses, like 50 micrograms, might be suitable for less experienced individuals or those more sensitive to LSD's effects. It's a really important step forward.
This is incredible work. It's amazing how much we're learning about the potential therapeutic uses of substances that were once demonized. It really highlights the importance of rigorous scientific research.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the therapeutic potential. This research also helps us understand the complex effects of psychedelics on the brain and consciousness. It's a field that's exploding with new discoveries. And this study is a significant contribution. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of LSD research. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a fascinating paper from Arxivor, Tiny Pointers. It's all about revolutionizing data structures. You know, the fundamental building blocks of how we organize and access information in computers. Exciting stuff!
Yeah, I saw this one too. So what's the big idea behind these tiny pointers? Are we talking about, like, saving a few bytes here and there, or something more significant?
Oh, it's way more significant than a few bytes. The core concept is replacing traditional, relatively large pointers, which use log n bits, with much smaller, tiny pointers, using O log n bits. Think of it as a massive space-saving technique.
O log n to O log n. That's a pretty substantial reduction, especially for large datasets. But what's the catch? There's always a trade-off, right?
Right, there's a constant factor, time overhead. But the authors argue that, in many applications, the space savings far outweigh this minor time penalty. They've developed optimal constructions for both fixed size and variable size tiny pointers.
Fixed size and variable size? Explain that.
Sure. Fixed size means all tiny pointers are the same size, while variable size allows for some pointers to be larger than others, as long as the average size remains small. This flexibility is key to optimizing space usage. For a load factor of 1 to 1k, the optimal fixed-size tiny pointer is theta, log n plus log k bits, while the variable size case is a much more compact, theta log k expected bits.
Wow, those are some impressive formulas. So, what kind of problems are they applying this to?
They've applied tiny pointers to 5 classic data structure problems: data retrieval, succinct dynamic binary search trees, space-efficient stable dictionaries, space-efficient dictionaries with variable size keys, and the internal memory stash problem. In each case, they've taken existing, space-inefficient solutions and made them significantly more space-efficient. Essentially, they're getting space efficiency for free.
That's remarkable. I'm curious, though, did they have to tackle any other interesting problems while developing these tiny pointers?
Absolutely. Their work involved revisiting classic balls and bins problems. These are fundamental problems in computer science, and their new results in this area might be of independent interest to researchers in that field. It's a really comprehensive paper.
It sounds like a game changer for data structure design. This could have huge implications for memory-constrained systems, right? Embedded systems, mobile devices.
Exactly. Anywhere where space is at a premium, tiny pointers could be a real breakthrough. This is a significant contribution to the field.
I agree. This paper is definitely worth a closer look for anyone working with data structures. Thanks for summarizing it for us.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into the complexities of MySQL foreign key constraints and online schema changes. It's a surprisingly thorny issue.
Yeah, I've always wondered about this. I mean, online schema changes sound great in theory, zero downtime migrations, but the reality with foreign keys seems messy.
Messy is an understatement. The core problem stems from how MySQL handles foreign keys. They're not a database-level feature, but rather an InnoDB storage engine implementation. This means they're tied to the table itself, not just the table's name. This is crucial.
So if you rename a table, the foreign key constraints move with it? That's unexpected.
Exactly. And that's where the trouble begins with online schema change tools like PT Online-Schema Change, GHOST, and Vitus. They all use a ghost table approach, creating a copy, modifying it, and then swapping it in. But with foreign keys, you end up with the old table still having its constraints. creating potential issues.
Right, I see. So if you're altering a child table, you create a ghost table with a new constraint name. But the old table remains, and that old constraint can cause problems if you try to delete rows from the parent table, for example.
Precisely. You could drop the old constraint, but that's an alter table operation itself, defeating the purpose of the online schema change. Or you could drop the old table entirely, but that's a risky operation in production, especially for large tables. Even with MySQL 8.023's improvements to drop table performance, it's still a potential point of failure.
So altering a parent table is even worse, right? Because then you have to deal with all the child table's foreign keys.
Oh, absolutely. You're not just altering one table. You're potentially altering every table in the related chain. PT Online Schema Change tries to handle this with its alter foreign keys method rebuild_constraints option. But that only works well if the child tables are small. If they're large, you're back to the problem of needing to perform blocking alter table operations.
And the complexity just explodes with deeply nested relationships. It sounds like a nightmare to coordinate all those migrations and ensure everything stays consistent.
It is. You need to carefully orchestrate the order of operations, handle potential failures gracefully, and ensure you have enough disk space for all those ghost tables. The whole process becomes incredibly fragile, and the risk of data corruption is significantly higher.
So what's the takeaway? Should we just avoid foreign keys altogether?
No, not necessarily. Foreign keys are crucial for data integrity, but this article highlights the significant challenges involved in managing them during online schema changes, especially with large tables. It really underscores the need for careful planning and potentially alternative strategies, like altering replicas instead of the primary.
Interesting. So maybe a more cautious approach with thorough testing and rollback plans is key. And maybe smaller, more manageable tables are a good design choice to mitigate this problem.
Exactly. And remember, the ideal solution would be for MySQL to have truly online, concurrent alter table operations that handle foreign keys gracefully. Until then, we have to work with the tools we have and be aware of their limitations. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you found this discussion insightful. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into Neuralink's progress with their brain-computer interface, or BCI, technology. It's been a year since their first implant, and the results are, frankly, mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing is right. I've been following this closely. So what's the big news from Neuralink's A Year of Telepathy blog post?
Well, 3 participants, Noland, Alex, and Brad, have collectively used their implants for over 4,900 hours. That's incredible. And the independent use is steadily increasing. They're not just using it in controlled research settings, they're integrating it into their daily lives.
6.5 hours of independent use per day on average? That's amazing. What kind of things are they doing with this telepathy, as Neuralink calls it?
Oh, it's incredible. Noland, the first recipient, is back in school, learning everything from math to creative writing. He even did a 72-hour live stream on X, controlling everything with his thoughts.
A 72-hour live stream? That's dedication. What about Alex and Brad?
Alex, who is paralyzed from the neck down, is designing 3D objects and even building hardware for his family's business. He's using CAD software and Illustrator, all controlled by his thoughts.
That's inspiring. And Brad? His situation is particularly compelling.
Yes, Brad has late-stage ALS. Before the implant, he could only communicate using an eye tracker, which was unreliable in anything but near-total darkness. Now, he's attending his son's soccer games, chatting with neighbors, even giving talks at his church. All thanks to the link.
It's truly transformative. But I'm curious, are there any limitations or challenges mentioned in the blog post?
Well, Neuralink acknowledges that individual usage varies based on personal preferences and lifestyles. And of course, this is still early days. They're working on improving the technology, especially for Brad, to create a more natural communication system. They're also exploring using the link to control assistive robotic arms, which could allow users to perform even more tasks independently.
That's a huge next step. So what's the takeaway here? What's the overall message Neuralink is trying to convey?
It's clear they're incredibly enthusiastic about the progress. They're highlighting the potential of the link to restore autonomy and independence to people with paralysis. They're also actively recruiting participants for their clinical trials in the US, Canada, and soon, the UK. They're emphasizing the collaborative nature of this research, highlighting how the participants' feedback is shaping the technology's development.
It's a powerful story of hope and technological advancement. It's amazing to see how this technology is changing lives. And the fact that they're actively seeking more participants shows their commitment to making this technology accessible to more people.
Absolutely. It's a remarkable achievement, and it's just the beginning. This is a technology that has the potential to revolutionize the lives of millions. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We'll keep you updated on Neuralink's progress. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating story about a Commodore 64 enthusiast, a mysterious collection of disks, and a journey into vintage computing. It's a tale of technological archaeology, digital tombs, and the enduring spirit of a community. Get ready for some serious retro tech excitement.
Whoa, sounds intense. So, what's the core of this story? Is it about the Commodore 64 itself, or something else entirely?
It's about both, actually. It centers around a collection of 5.25 floppy disks, bright yellow, handmade sleeves, and covered in meticulously crafted text. They're called the penny farthing disks, a name that itself is a puzzle. Think oversized, Victorian-era bicycles. A bit absurd, right?
Intriguing. So why are these disks so special? Is it just the aesthetics?
Oh no. It's far more than just aesthetics. These disks, created in 2009, well after the Commodore 64's heyday, contain chapters of a fictional story and some games. But accessing them is a challenge. You need a specific setup, a Commodore 64 or 128, a CMD Super CPU, RAM expansion, and a specific version of GOS called Wheels. It's like a digital treasure hunt.
A digital treasure hunt? That's amazing. So who created this elaborate system?
The creator was David Moore, also known as Lord Ronan. He was part of the Astoria Commodore User Group, ACUG, and these disks were created specifically for his club members' desk. Sadly, he passed away in 2009, shortly after releasing the last disk. It's a poignant story.
That's incredibly sad. So the disks are a kind of legacy then? A testament to his passion?
Exactly. And it's not just Moore's story. One side of one of the discs features games by Paul Panks, another Commodore enthusiast who also passed away around the same time. Panks was known for creating incredibly long and, let's say, unique interactive fiction games. His games were often critically panned, but he kept creating, a testament to his dedication.
So these disks are a time capsule of a very specific niche community? A kind of digital folklore?
Absolutely. It's a story about passion, dedication, and the enduring power of community, all wrapped up in the quirky world of vintage computing. The fact that these disks, created with such care and effort, still function and tell a story is remarkable. It's a beautiful, bittersweet tribute to these two individuals and their shared love for the Commodore 64.
I see. It's a story about more than just technology. It's about the people behind it, their dedication, and their legacy. It's a really touching story, actually. I'm almost moved to tears.
It really is. And it highlights how even seemingly obscure corners of technology can hold profound stories and connections. It's a reminder that the human element is always at the heart of any technological advancement. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of the Commodore penny farthing adventures. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into 11 Reader, a free read-aloud text app powered by 11 Labs. It's amazing! Think of it as a supercharged audiobook experience, but for any text you can imagine.
Wow, that sounds incredible. So it's not just audiobooks? What kind of content can you actually throw at it?
Exactly. You can feed it books, articles, PDFs, newsletters, even just plain text. It supports a huge range of formats. Seriously. Anything you can get your hands on, digitally speaking.
And the narration? Is it, robotic and monotone? Because I've tried some of those text-to-speech things before. Ugh.
Oh, no. This is completely different. 11 Labs uses ultra-realistic AI narration. They've got hundreds of high-definition voices with different accents and tones. You can even choose a voice that suits the content.
Hundreds of voices? That's insane. So you're saying I could listen to, say, a scientific paper read in a warm British accent?
Absolutely. Or a news article in a deep American voice. Or a novel in a soft, perceptive British accent. The possibilities are endless. They even have a feature called Gen FM, which lets you create smart podcasts from your own content.
Gen FM? What's that? I'm intrigued.
It's like an AI co-host. You upload your stuff, and it generates a podcast with AI voices discussing it. It's currently only on iOS, but it's a pretty cool feature.
That's remarkable. I'm a bit skeptical about the quality, though. How accurate is the text-to-speech? Does it get things wrong?
That's a valid concern. From what I've seen, the accuracy is very high. They've clearly put a lot of effort into making sure the AI understands nuances in language and punctuation. But, it's still AI, so there might be occasional minor slips. But overall, it's fantastic.
Okay, I'm sold. 32 languages supported too? That's global reach. What about accessibility features?
Yes. They have focused bimodal listening, so you can follow along as the words are highlighted in sync with the audio. Perfect for learners or anyone who wants to follow along easily. Plus, it works with PDFs and EPUBs, which is a huge plus for me.
This is seriously impressive. It sounds like a game changer for anyone who wants to consume content differently. I'm downloading it right now.
I highly recommend it. It's free, available on both iOS and Android, and it's just a blast to use. And don't forget to check out their website for more information on their other products and services. They're doing some amazing things with 8i Audio.
Definitely will. Thanks for the heads up.
You're welcome. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into the post-mortem of Namco's Katamari Damacy, a game that redefined quirky and fun 20 years ago. Let's roll.
I'm stoked. This is a classic. So, what were the core design choices that made Katamari Damacy so unique?
Well, the premise itself is utterly bonkers. A tiny prince tasked with rolling up the universe to replace the stars his dad destroyed. The core gameplay is deceptively simple. You just roll a ball, collecting increasingly larger objects. But the genius lies in the execution.
Right, the sheer scale is amazing. Going from rolling up marbles to a giant squid, that's a wild progression. How did they manage that?
They meticulously planned object placement and scaling. It wasn't all pre-planned, though. A lot of it was trial and error, figuring out what worked within the game's engine and memory limitations. They even had to consider how long it would take players to reach the target size for each level.
Interesting. And the lack of power-ups? That's a bold choice in a genre often saturated with them.
Exactly. They intentionally avoided power-ups to maintain the pure, simple joy of rolling and growing. They considered adding specific objectives, but ultimately decided against it, fearing it would overshadow the core mechanic of increasing the Katamari's size.
That's brilliant. It kept the focus laser sharp. But what about the technical aspects? The rolling itself must have been tricky to implement.
Oh, absolutely. They focused on the haptic feedback and sound effects to enhance the feeling of rolling. They even incorporated combo elements, rewarding players with visual flair for consecutive pickups. It's all about those subtle details.
I see. The postmortem also mentions some challenges, right? Like the camera and the potential for motion sickness?
Yeah, the camera was a limitation. They wanted to emphasize the scale, but the automatic zoom out sometimes caused issues. They also struggled with the crumbling mechanic. The idea that the Katamari could shrink if it hit something too big. It proved too technically difficult to implement smoothly.
That's a shame. It sounds like a cool feature. And what about the music? The postmortem mentions a unique approach there, too.
The music is legendary. The sound director, Yu Miyake, had incredible creative freedom. He even incorporated his own humming into the title sequence. He also used a diverse range of vocalists to broaden the appeal, creating a soundtrack that's both memorable and perfectly complements the game's unique atmosphere.
Amazing. So overall, what's the biggest takeaway from this postmortem?
The power of simplicity and originality. Katamari Damacy succeeded because it dared to be different, focusing on a unique core mechanic and avoiding unnecessary complexities. It's a testament to the fact that sometimes the most memorable games are the ones that break the mold.
Absolutely. A truly inspiring story of game design. Thanks for breaking it down for us.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bites and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the daily roundup of Tech Bytes and News. See you again tomorrow. Goodbye.